Welcome to the Pink Sphere podcast. This is your 30 minutes of pink, a weekly space to pause, breathe, and tune into something real. Each episode, one of our incredible coaches join us for a conversation that matters. Today, we're diving into something so many women carry but rarely talk about it out loud: the skill set that lives beyond our resume, the invisible strengths, the stuff we've learned through life, not just titles. This one's for women who know they've got what it takes, but don't always know how to show it. Hi, Patrycja. So lovely to have you here.
Hi, Nadine. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here, and I hope the episode is going to be helpful to many women, perhaps not just women, but maybe that's who we address.
I want to start with something that's been on my mind a lot lately. Okay. How do we prove we're the right person for a job when the best parts of who we are don't fit into the resumes we prepare?
Yes, so that's a very good question. And I think, well, first of all, let me say, how I like to talk about a resume, maybe to explain it better, is that, of course, it's never going to capture us as a whole person because we're so much more than the kind of 1, 2 pages
Mhm.
can capture. So we can compare that to we are a movie, but the resume is kind of like a trailer. So
Yeah.
we want to capture interest. We want to kind of let the employer know what our movie is about, but we're never gonna fully explain that. But at the same time, we want to try and do our best to capture what we represent, what we bring to the employment or the picture as a person. So I know this question is slightly not about that, but I would still encourage you and everyone to do your best to include as much as you can of yourself on that 1, 2 pages.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is we all bring something to the table. And even like you've mentioned, if those strengths are not corporate, that doesn't mean they're not professional.
Mhm.
So I would still try and do my best to mention everything that I believe is applicable. If that's, I mean, usually we would try and make the CV resume applicable for the job that we apply
Yeah.
for. But of course, we might not be able to include everything and show our personality. We will do our best, but there are other kind of means that we can try and showcase our personality.
Mhm.
And now we have so many tools like LinkedIn, which I
Mhm.
think is slightly underused by women in employment, because I think now business owners and just self-employed professionals, they use it very well. But as employees in a company, we still have, that's a great space to kind of showcase what we
Mhm.
stand for, what our knowledge is, what we're interested in. We can also ask for recommendations on LinkedIn from our colleagues or managers or anyone that we knew in our life that could maybe give a bit of like a recommendation or a description of our skills, our experience. Um, but also, of course, that's the next step of the process. But if we do secure that interview, that's the place where we can showcase our personality.
Mhm.
Um, and also now, sorry, with every application you can send a cover letter as well. Well, maybe not with all, but with 90% of applications you can do that. So this is a place where you can also show who you are, and we
Mhm.
shouldn't be afraid to kind of include that warmth and that personality, because this is still a place where we can showcase that.
You said our resumes are just like trailers, right? Trailers to the whole movie. So, how do you make it stand out? What is your one big tip to make it stand out? Can you stretch the truth a little on your resume while doing that?
hmm So I think I'll give 2 tips, because I think 2 tips are probably a bit better than one. So first one is, I think, always make it as applicable to the job, the one that you're applying for, as you can.
Mhm.
So try not to make, of course, you have your experience, but you can change it slightly depending on the position or the company you're applying for. Um,
Mhm.
and within that, um, don't provide just like a list of tasks. Give some context and also show the impact that you had as a person, as an employee. So it's as if telling a story. So you're telling a story to someone and you want them to understand it fully. So you don't want to just give them like bullet points. So that's the first tip, which is probably two in one. But my second one is also don't be afraid to show your personality. So, like I've said, be intentional. So, be intentional with the words that you use. With if you wouldn't say something in real life, I wouldn't include that in like on a CV because we want to sound professional, but we want to sound robotic either. That will make the kind of CV generic. So, to maybe give a bit more context about you as a person, about your personality, you can give a statement on top, but make it very authentic because employers, they want to see your personality. Employers want skills, but they also want someone who is a human being and who can, who represents something and who adds to the company not just their skills but their other qualities, which I think are equally important, especially in
Mm-hmm.
very specific roles. So I wouldn't be afraid to show these, and you can do that through the use of words, through short descriptions. Um, if you don't have a lot of like professional as in corporate company experience, you can try and organize your resume on kind of like a skill based format. So you can put the main skills that you have and provide examples. Where did you do that? Like where did you demonstrate that skill? So even if you don't have a lot of that corporate company experience, you can still kind of showcase what you're good at, what you've done before, and how that
Mm-hmm.
benefits or impacts the company that you're applying for or the position that you're applying for. And to answer the second question, I think I would not recommend like stretching the truth. I think there is a slight difference between like positioning and let's say pretending, because of course we all want to kind of show our best side. We want
Mm-hmm.
to, just like on Instagram, let's say, we would never like, I mean, maybe some people would, but mostly us, all of us, we would take a picture when we look great, when we have our makeup on. So I would say show your best sides, frame it well. So frame what your experiences and what you bring to the table well, but I would not pretend because first of all, it's quite risky because companies, employers, managers, they most likely will be able to check and kind of
Yeah.
verify if what you're saying is actually true. And you don't want to lose your credibility. You don't want to kind of harm your reputation because I think there is more to lose than to gain. But at the same time, if you pretend, then that can impact your confidence because now you're kind of striving to something that it might not be yet achievable. So if you say that you've managed a team of 20 and you've never done it and somehow you get that role, then ultimately you will feel accountable to demonstrate those skills, and that can kind of
Mm-hmm.
sabotage yourself. So I think even if you have like informal experience, let's say you have led a team, you might not have had that team leader title. You can
Yeah.
say acted as a team leader or supported leading of the team or supported the director in XYZ. So you can
Mm-hmm.
still
Mm-hmm.
demonstrate that informal experience or describe what you've done, not necessarily calling that as an official like official title or an official position. But yeah, I would stretch the truth or like make things up
Yeah.
because that can
And
be very harmful. Yeah.
nowadays, of course, AI is used more than ever before, and the resume is being prepared through
Mm.
ChatGPT mostly. And as I was hiring for the Pink Sphere, I saw CVs that have same sentences, same titles, just the name of the CVs changed.
Mhm.
And do you think employers care about that? Do you think employers care if AI is used or not?
Um, well, I think everyone will use AI. So just to let me say that, but it depends how we use it, right? And I think if an
Yeah.
employer sees an exact copy, like you've said, I think they will care because, like you've said, companies get hundreds, thousands of CVs, let's
Hmm.
say weekly.
Yeah.
Um, they want something to stand out. And also, probably, you can also tell me what's your opinion, but you probably, I don't know if kind of the credibility of the person, if you felt like it was very good when you've seen, like, let's say three people with the same CV. I mean, it's probably people want to see a CV that stands out. So I'm not saying it's bad to use AI because it's a great resource, but it just depends how we use it. So I would suggest that we can use it to come with the kind of initial structure of your CV, or perhaps ask for support with finding different words, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
making the sentences flow a bit better, or make them slightly more succinct,
Mm-hmm.
because I think on a resume it's also difficult not to like to keep things succinct but also informative. Um, but
Yeah.
like I've said, you still need your personality to shine through. So you can use it to help
Yeah.
you build the skeleton, but I would still go through the CV, make sure that everything that it says, it's something that you would say, it's something that really showcases who you are, what you've done, um, and again, being intentional about what the
Yeah.
CV says. Um, so yeah, I think that's the best kind of way to actually stand out of from the crowd.
Yeah, use your own voice, be
Yeah.
authentic. And yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And we had our episode with Julia. It was all about brand voice. And what you're saying right now is actually kind of use your voice
Yeah,
in your CV too. Just like you're
exactly.
using your voice on social media and everywhere, use your
Hmm.
voice on the CV as well, right?
Yeah, because this is part of your personal brand, and I'm sure Julia would agree.
Yeah.
It's something that shows who you are as a person. And LinkedIn, exactly, it's an extension, or a CV is
Yeah.
an extension of who you are. So you really want the employer to understand you and capture that
Mm-hmm.
interest. And I think your personality,
Mm-hmm.
probably sometimes, of course, your experience as well, because some people can have amazing experience, but personality is something that kind of differentiates you from everyone else, and that can make a huge
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Do you think your LinkedIn profile is as important as your CV while applying for jobs on LinkedIn?
Well, CV probably it's still a bit more important because that's the first thing that
Hmm.
employers see. Probably not all employers check your in LinkedIn, but I think LinkedIn
Yeah.
is a really, really good resource. And it's an extension, and that's the space where you can, like what you've said, that where you can show your hidden strengths. That's where you can show your and any projects that you've been part of, like in more detail, because of course you can include that all on your CV, but still LinkedIn is a
Yeah.
space where you can expand on it and describe it. um,
Hmm.
I mean, people don't like to show their personal life, and I completely get that and respect that, but if there is any, like, you can kind of show your mindset, the way you think. So it's a great resource. So if an employer checks your and now as well, when you apply, there is a lot of applications where you have that space where you can post your LinkedIn link.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's a great space. Probably not more important than your CV, because CV, it's still
Yeah.
resume. It's still the thing that's being seen first, but definitely something that I
Hmm.
would pay attention to and be active and use that to our benefit to show who we are and
Hmm.
what we bring to the table.
And what do you think about sending messages to the employers on LinkedIn? I had a friend, she was looking for a job and she had been applying for hundreds of jobs. And finally, she started, DMing the employers saying, "Hey, I applied to your job. And did you check out my CV? Do you want to talk?" And so on. So, what do you think about that? Is it something that should be done or not? What do you
I think
think?
following up is a good rule in general. So if it's an email, it shows initiative, and I think definitely
Hmm.
if the employer or the recruitment team, they access that message, it will probably make them look for you in the applicant pool.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very good rule to follow up, whether that's on via email or LinkedIn. LinkedIn sometimes is a tricky option because companies, if it's an official company profile, they usually get a lot of messages, and if it's a
Hmm.
recruiter's profile, then probably you're not connected with them, and then you cannot
Hmm.
send that message, or you can just send it but with an invite, which makes it a bit more tricky. But I would suggest, yeah, definitely, if you can send that email, just not even as a reminder, but just say, "Hi, I'm very excited. I've applied for the position. I'm
Yeah.
very excited. If there's anything else that I can do," because you kind of you're more visible. But that's not to say, because that shouldn't impact the recruitment process either. So
Hmm.
according to kind of the guidelines and the kind of fair process,
Yeah.
most likely that's not going to be a determinant, but still, as people, when something's more familiar, something's more visible, we automatically pay more attention.
Yeah.
So I think just becoming more visible and showing that you are intentional. Again, I think that's the key word, intentional, about applying for this position, and that you're actually interested. It wasn't one of the million of roles that you've applied for. You took the time to follow up, to check in. I think that can be very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. But you need to avoid spamming, right? You need to
Yeah.
avoid sending hundreds of
No, no,
messages
no.
one after the other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, no
Just one is
spamming.
enough.
No. One is enough. Yeah.
So I have another question. This one's about the ladies perhaps watching us and just who doesn't know where to start, right?
Hmm.
So, what do you have? What do you say to the woman who knows she has what it takes, all right, all the skills, but she doesn't know how to show it on her CV? You said you should put all the skills that you think is applicable, but that person, she doesn't even know how to write her CV. Should she get in touch with a coach, career coach, or use AI, or she take the first step to
Yeah.
preparing her resume?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what the kind of block is. Because if it's about the structure, I think there is a lot of templates that can show you how to structure your
Mm-hmm.
CV, and that can be very helpful. If it's about, because you've mentioned that she knows what she brings to the table, but perhaps if it's about
Yeah,
describing those skills,
perhaps.
then
Yeah.
then yeah, then working with a coach could be useful, or even having a chat with a friend or a colleague if
Mm-hmm.
they're in employment, because asking someone, okay, could you perhaps describe like what my strengths are, can we have that discussion, that can be very helpful. So like a brainstorming session to take some notes, and that can be the very first draft, so you don't have to create your CV from scratch, the perfect version in your
Mm-hmm.
first kind of sitting. You can write your first draft. That can even be a story. If you don't know, let's say, okay, you cannot think of like a specific sentence to describe your experience, you can write a memory, a story from what happened in the past. If you, let's say, led a team or you led a project, what happened? So write a short story of from your memory what happened, and that's going to be a starting point to you kind of coming up with those
Yeah.
points that you're going to kind of expand on or organize.
Mm-hmm.
Um, AI can be helpful as well, but AI is as good as what we kind of feed feed it. So it depends on your prompts and actually how well you know yourself and what you want to include. But yeah, I would say working with someone, coach or a friend, colleague, it's definitely going to help organize it. If the person maybe doesn't know what their strengths are, there are free tools
Yeah.
online that could help you, like questionnaires that maybe can help you identify those strengths, and then based on that,
Mm-hmm.
you can think about specific situations in your life or your employment that you've demonstrated that,
Yeah.
see what's applicable to each position, and then
Mm-hmm.
include that in
Mm-hmm.
your resume. So a lot of options depending on what the kind of block is and what the person prefers as well.
Yeah. What about the enhancements for the CVs?
Mm-hmm.
You want to get an online education about a specific topic, and you want to add certifications and keep enhancing your CV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it all depends. So I think at least for me, the main platforms that
Yeah.
I've used before is Coursera. This is not sponsored, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
Coursera
yeah.
and Udemy. Um, so you
Yeah.
like Academy, but Udemy. They have a lot of courses. A lot of the
Yeah.
courses when you first purchase the course, it's discounted. So it's like 10,
Mm-hmm.
15 pounds sometimes for quite a comprehensive course, but there's a lot of free courses as well, so via LinkedIn as well, if you want to get a bit better in like using LinkedIn or something connected to using the platform, you can do courses that are free. I think Coursera, they offer a lot of free courses as well, so these are the two ones
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend, and you can get certifications. Some of them are accredited by different kind of organizations, some are not, but still you get that, I don't want to say qualification, but that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
certificate of showing that you have done that.
Yeah, me and my English, right? Me and the questions I
No,
ask.
but that's a very good question, because some of them are actually accredited, meaning that there is an
Mm-hmm.
organization that's checked the course and you do get a, let's say, some sort of title or
Mm-hmm.
accreditation. But some are just you get a diploma, but there's not an
Mm-hmm.
official kind of body, governing body, standing by that
Mm-hmm.
diploma, if that makes sense. But that doesn't make it, any less
Yeah, yeah. I get it.
advantageous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for example, my husband, he is a clinical psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a mental health coach as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he keeps telling me, teaching me about psychology, and I
Mm-hmm.
really love it. But this doesn't make me a psychologist. I have to go through all that
Yeah.
education. But what do you think is the best way, for example, for me to use all that knowledge and show it on my CV? There are lots of people out there who have those skills, that knowledge about a specific topic, but they don't have the certifications, accreditations. Of course, it
Mm-hmm.
cannot turn into a position related to
Yeah.
that skill set, perhaps, but how can I add it to my CV to say that for me, in my case, I am really good in my psychology, knowledge. So should I get a certification for it, or how else can I show that skill set, that knowledge that I have?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the if you have a specific role in mind, because usually, like you've said, if you want to work as a
Hmm.
psychologist, if you want to work in that field, there's not any way around having those official qualifications, which are an
Hmm.
actual university degrees, and the kind of full education route. Um, but definitely you can include that in your CV even if you don't have any courses. That's why I mentioned the kind of summary about yourself, because that's where you can
Yeah.
include the information that you're um, passionate about psychology or experienced in that. Of course,
Hmm.
give examples, not to make it sound generic, but describe
Yeah, yeah,
what it is that you enjoy and what it is that you can do, how you've perhaps gained that experience. But also, like I've said, if
yeah. Hmm.
you may not have that corporate company experience, you can still devote a slight piece of your CV to that skills section where you can include those skills and kind of expand, say a bit more about them, what you know, how you've used those skills, and how you think you might use them in the
Hmm.
future. But here as well, and I think because resume in itself, it's the base, but we have so much more that we can use. And like I said, the cover letter as well, that's where you can really shine, and
Yeah.
that's where you have more of that space in your own words to explain, and also maybe say why you're mentioning it, why you think it's actually applicable, and why that differentiates you, and how that can benefit the company. So definitely the cover letter, but then again, LinkedIn, like I've said. And here, if you do have any accreditations, you can really expand on them, because you don't just have to add, okay, I've gained a new certificate. You can really say, okay, what I've learned, and add it to the post about the certificate, what I've
Hmm.
learned, what was the course about, what were the modules, what I enjoyed, how I applied it. And that really helps. And also, if you can even comments, even like
Yeah.
engaging with content from other people, from other like companies or
Hmm.
professional bodies, you can still demonstrate your knowledge, and engage in the kind of subject specific posts, and that helps as well. So I think it's a mix, and I think there is a place for
Yeah.
this kind of aspect of yourself in each document, so to say, or each
Hmm.
platform. And it's just a different way of framing it, and structuring, depending on the kind of structure of the document itself.
Hmm. Hmm. So I am your client and I find you through the pink sphere. I want to work with you on my CV. And you are also a mental health coach. So, how does being a career coach and a mental health coach work together to help me with my CV?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. And the reason why I approach this topic from two sides. So one is the kind of career transition strategy planning side, and one mental health side. It's because career transitions and any changes around in our life, but also in our careers, are very deep psychological experiences. And this is not
Mm,
just about strategy. Of course, the strategy element and the vision element, it's a very important part of the process, because, of course, we want to have the plan of where we're going, how we're going to do it to make it manageable. But at the same time, there is a lot in play from that mental health side. So perhaps
Mm-hmm.
any like imposter syndrome feelings, or maybe
Yeah.
issues with your confidence, or maybe the stress around the whole transition, because a lot is happening and it seems just just like a career transition, but a lot is in play, especially if of course you have your own life. You might be a mom, you might that might be your first job. There's so much happening. So I want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that my clients are supported from the strategy vision side, but also have that safe space where they can explore anything else that might be stopping them, that might be stressing them or making this process difficult. And working
Mm-hmm.
through that also, perhaps using some techniques to relieve that tension, to deal with those thoughts, emotions, and make sure that holistically this process is as effective and pleasant as possible. And that we don't limit ourselves, because we might have the skills, the experience, and have the strategy, but something in our mind might just be stopping us and blocking us. And we might not be going for the opportunities that we want. We might be just self sabotaging ourselves. Um, so I just want to make it a very holistic and as
Mm-hmm.
pleasant experience as possible, as pleasurable experience as
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
And for example, there's this business owner, this entrepreneur, or someone who has just changed their career, someone who found a job that she thinks it's her dream job, but
Yeah.
suddenly she realizes that this is not it for her, right? So, how long do you think that person should spend to think if that is the right position for her or if she should leave and go on a different direction?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think a lot of people struggle. A lot of people struggle with that, and I'm far from telling anyone what to do. But my
Yeah,
advice would
of
be
course.
usually the first 3 months, up to 6 months. I would say it's the kind of
Hmm.
hardest time in any new job. And even if that's your
Hmm.
dream job, even if you really wanted to get it, it's still a time of change. It's still a transition. So
Hmm.
most likely everyone in the new company is new. You don't know anyone. You're the new person. Most likely it's a step up, or it's a different company. It might be a different industry. So there is something different in your kind of responsibilities as well that you need to do. You need to
Hmm.
get to know the company policies, the procedures. So it's definitely a
Everything. Yeah.
stressful and straining time. So I would say, of course, sometimes, and it all depends on each person individually. Sometimes the workplace might be toxic. You might not have seen that from the outside. So of course, in that situation, I would never say like stay, but usually I would say give yourself that 3 months, maybe 6 months if possible, and observe, see if with every day it gets better. If not, then of course that might not be the opportunity for you. But I would say the
Hmm.
first 3 months usually, and even speaking from my own experience, it's always the hardest time, and it's the time of adapting and getting to know everyone
Yeah.
and everything in the company.
Hmm.
And that's why
Hmm. So
kind of probationary periods are in place as well, right?
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Patricia, I think we have a lot more to talk about in the coming episode. If you have a final tip, anything that you want to share, this is your time. And then we'll call it a wrap.
Perfect. Well, thank you, first of all, for the lovely conversation. But I think my main thing that I want everyone to hear is that don't be afraid to like show yourself, show your personality,
Hmm.
and be authentic, because that's ultimately what differentiates you from anyone. And don't be afraid to ask for help as well. If it's from colleagues, if it's from friends or a coach or anyone that can help you in your life, because we all need help
Hmm.
sometimes, and sometimes it helps a lot to have another person to show that perspective, and maybe step back a little bit and just take the next step more confidently, and yeah, and just
Yeah.
go for it as well. Don't be afraid to go for it.
Thank you, Patricia. That's a wrap on this week's 30 Minutes of Pink. And if Patricia's words hit home, make sure to visit her profile on thepinksphere.com. You'll find her sessions, her coaching, and her voice there when you need it. And feel free to follow the podcast, drop us a message if something sparked something in you, and stay with us each week. A new voice, a new topic, and a new chance to feel understood. Thank you for listening, and please know that we see you. Okay?
Well
Bye.
done.